trekking in the Himalayas, and it's like, I love that idea that you're walking for that, like it's like that is the path, you're on a path, and it's like you just have to put one foot in front of the other, like on, and then you get to the point we're going, you know.
Yeah.
that's how it works, but it's like a metaphor. Before we get into this episode, I have a couple of announcements to make. So, first one is very last minute, but if you're in Melbourne on the 30th of November, later this month, it's a Thursday, there is going to be a growing up event, the first ever one. So feel free to DM me if you're around and keen. And then the second announcement is not really an announcement, but I guess a bit more of a ramble. So just to give you some context about this episode, but I've also written some notes so I don't totally go off track. Okay, so this was recorded in August last year, 2022, right before I released the first episode of the podcast, and we're now up to 77 episodes. You're going to hear, like, full credit to Neil, I'm just randomly start getting quite emotional, and I've just gone through a breakup and I'm kind of revealing some dark thoughts that I'm having, and Neil is kind of totally caught off guard, but like does so well with responding, as you'll hear if you continue listening. So basically, I start talking about how I feel like my life isn't worth living, and it's like a deeply painful thing, obviously. So I just wanted to say, like, I'm in a way better place than that now. And yeah, I mean, it seems funny because it's like 5 days after a breakup, but it's not like this depression thing was only to do with breakups. Like, I think the last really bad period I had was February this year, when I just woke up every day like not wanting to go on living, basically. And I've come so far. I've done so much work around healing those wounds or those parts. And you've probably heard about a lot of it through this podcast if you've been listening. And because I've shared a lot of those resources. So yeah, so I guess just a note that it might be quite confronting. But also, if you are finding yourself in a similar place, or you want access to some of these resources and you can't find them, yeah, feel free to message me. The other thing I just wanted to say is to apologize if I offend anyone, but it's so interesting because when you're depressed, you're so in your own head that you lose perspective of like how the world works. It's really weird. So you'll hear, I've like totally lost perspective that there are people with actual mental disabilities that mean that they're unable to function on their own. And my brain is telling me that I'm so hopeless or helpless or like incapable that I also can't cope on my own, which just, it doesn't make sense. But it's like, that's what depression does to your brain. And that's why one of my favorite hacks is, if you're feeling really in a bad place, not just like a sad day, but in a depressed place where you're just like feeling your mood is very low for an extended period of time, something that really helps is hearing someone else's problems, like hearing what's going on in someone else's life, because you can hear, and I talk about it in this episode, it's like you have this weird perspective that everyone else is like perfect and you're just a failure. But then by speaking to someone, and they'll tell you like, oh, this went wrong and this went wrong, but they'll also, you know, they also have a bit more resilience. It somehow really helps you get out of your own head. my last point is why I'm releasing it now is I did always think I'd release it after we recorded it, even though Neil was kind of a bit worried about how he comes off because, yeah, I totally took him by surprise, but I think he comes off so well. And I always thought I'd record it because I think hopefully it's helpful for other people to hear, and that's kind of like I'm kind of saying what my whole purpose is. But why now? The honest truth is my backlog has like run out, so this is the only episode I have left in my backlog. And the reason is because last week I was so busy at this conference called the ARC Forum. Some of you might have heard of it. And I ended up meeting, this is like on manifestation, which is also a topic that comes up on this podcast. I wrote down all these names of people who I wanted to meet at some point in my life, maybe a year and a half ago. It was like, I want to meet these people, like talk to them, maybe invite them on the podcast, whatever. And I met like 10 of those people last week, and it was just crazy. And one of those people who I wanted to meet that I was like said very openly before I started the podcast was Jordan Peterson. I know people have like very extreme views on him, whether they like absolutely love him or not so much. Basically his whole personal responsibility stuff really helped me when I was feeling very depressed. And like, as you'll hear in this episode. But yeah, I met him and we talked, and I said, like, I started this podcast, and when I started, it was like, I want to meet you. And he's like, and how long did it take? It's like a year or slightly over. And then he's like, how's it going? And I said, well, yeah, I'm like, I don't know, I'm really scared to properly distribute it and properly work on marketing it, which is funny because I'm talking about that in this podcast as well, with how good at Stephen Bartlett is marketing his podcast. And he was like, well, you need to do the work and examine that, like what's holding you back. And I'll spare you all the introspection I did following that, but I'll just say on that note, if you're enjoying the podcast, feel free to follow and give it a rating, because it actually does help people find the podcast through the algorithm. And in the meantime, I am going to start uploading these to YouTube, so it's there as well, and we can engage in the comment section and all these great things. Oh yeah, and then if you want to subscribe to the newsletter as well, and you are not already on it, it's where I share a lot of ideas from non-fiction books, mainly, and other ideas. The link's in the description. And now, finally, onto the app. Oh yeah, and I do have more content coming soon, don't worry, including, very excitingly, a lot of those people I met at the conference. So stay tuned. Hey.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. It's 10. We just had some friends around for dinner with their newborn, which was really nice. Made homemade pizzas. Got to hold the baby as well, which was cute. It was a nice evening. Nice for a Monday. It's going to be it's a good way to start the week for sure.
I wondered whether we could do something a bit different now.
Yeah.
Where I wanted to, because basically, so originally we were going to do this a couple of hours ago, and then I wanted to do the whole like interviewing you, which I still want to do, and you like teaching me about carbon capture in concrete, or how you measure that, because that's your passion and interest and area of focus in life.
It's my mission.
Right?
My mission.
Yeah, your mission.
Yeah. No, I didn't think it would be, but yeah, after 2020 definitely set me on the path. And I think it's pretty exciting. Well, it doesn't sound that exciting, but it is. There's a lot of interest in it at the moment, globally. It's really interesting, actually, how it's all going to play out for how we build things.
Cool. So do you feel, okay, this is a thing I wanted to ask you actually that just came to mind because my lovely flatmate just sent me this little podcast 8-minute snippet of, do you know Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett?
No, Diary of a
Okay, so
CEO.
he like dominates in this world and I need to learn from him because he just knows how to market. Like he does so well with, he just does this podcast, which is basically like what I want to do. He just interviews people, like so many people who I would love to interview, and just talks about like life, and they end up talking about like super deep stuff. But
Wow, he's
he
born in 1992.
yeah, so he's my age. He's on Shark Tank and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
He has, it's just, yeah, it's just so interesting. Anyway, but
Can I
so
make a comment?
yeah.
This is not trying to derail. This is a silly comment, but there was a kid in my primary school. I was in a mixed class in year 3. So it was year 3, 4, and
What do
there
you
was a
mean
kid.
mixed? Oh,
So there was year 3s and 4s
yeah,
in
yeah,
our
yeah.
class, and there was a kid in year 4 who was really naughty called Stephen Bartlett, and
Wow,
everyone called him Stephen Bumlet.
that's mean.
That that's that was just, I haven't heard that name in a long time. I was like, I wonder if it's him. He was a
No,
troublemaker.
he's English.
Anyway, yeah, no, this guy
This
looks
guy.
awesome. Founded,
So so it's really cool. So he obviously is just like all over the game of my, because okay, I'm just starting, like it's fine, this conversation. A few people listen to it, but as I build up, it's like, how do you actually build an audience? And it's all like playing, it's all marketing basically, and PR, and like going on TikTok. So he's pops up on TikTok with, and uses really clickbaity titles, like
mm,
Malcolm Gladwell, who I always go on about. He interviewed him recently in this amazing interview, and he's like, the title is like, why working from home is like killing us or something. That wasn't there's like some super extreme title, but that's just like, that's not really what the conversation was about. But that's the thing that's put up there to be like, is this going to make people click? And like, he's so good at that experimentation, and like, what does because basically I guess his whole thing has been like building audiences in social media. But anyway, that's just a backstory to say it's really cool with his podcast. The podcast is up there, like full episodes, but then he also does these moments when it will be like just an 8-minute snippet of the episode that's like why people pleasing is bad or something. And that was the one I listened to that I want to that I want to tell you about, that my flatmate sent to me. And it's
yeah,
basically, it's Lewis Howes, which I don't know if you know him. He was like a former NFL guy, who's now got this, in this space of like interviewing people, but more like wellness, I guess. But it's funny. I remember he said something once about that snowflake thing, that if you like shout at water, it like changes. It can
oh
it
yeah,
can
I've heard
have
of this
emotions, which
guy.
is the thing
Yeah,
that Djokovic said as well, that you were
yeah.
making fun of Djokovic, of like, he's such an idiot that he thinks this is true. And then did we look into the book and it was then like, okay, this
No,
Japanese guy wrote this book, and it actually is, yeah, kind of just made up. But anyway, so I'm like, oh, bless Lewis Howes for saying that. But then it's like, I'm going to say so much stuff that's so stupid doing this. And it's like, then I'll learn, and that's fine. So it's like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't beat yourself up for, obviously, that's the point. It's like, but that's just like, if someone listens to something I said like 5 years, or, on the podcast we did before, and it's like, wow. But it's like, okay, cool. like, remember when we were like, you were like, I'm worried I won't graduate from Cambridge because of this podcast. And then I was like, oh my God, you do. And now I've graduated. So
Yeah,
it's fine.
I haven't yet though. I'm yet to.
You're still at risk.
They could still take
Okay,
me down.
So the point was, that on this podcast, he said that he's said this to his girlfriend, that he was like, I've realized I'm going to say something that, you know, he just started dating this girl who's amazing that he's totally into, but he was like, I need to tell you something and maybe you're not going to like it, but you are not my number one priority and you're never going to be that. And the reason is my health is my number one priority and always has to be. Yeah. Otherwise, I just can't give anything to anyone else. Like, I guess that's the classic on the plane, like put your mask on before anyone else.
Yeah.
And then, but he was like, you're also not my number two priority because my number two priority is my mission, like on this earth with the work I'm doing. And then you're my number three priority. And that, but like by focusing on the first two, I can be the most amazing partner because I have so much more to give you because I am this person who's like committed to my growth and my journey and my health and etc. So I wanted to ask you if you feel like, so then I was just thinking of mission, and I do feel like I have one of those, even though it's very hard to articulate, and maybe I can try and do that a little bit in this conversation.
Yeah.
And to also talk about the health point, I wanted to talk about that here for me, if that's okay with you. But I wanted to ask if you feel like the construction carbon thing is like your life, not that you have it all figured out, but if that's like a deeper thing that's calling you of like, I
think, sorry to cut you off. I think it is. And I think it was kind of, my eyes were opened definitely going back to study. And I think like getting a better appreciation of how much, you know, needs to be built to continue to, I guess, for the population to is continuing to grow. And then it's the age old thing, like what are the two things, like the two essentials that anyone's ever going to need, and it's like food and shelter. So we're going to need to build like houses for people to live in. We're going to need to build roads so people can get from A to B, or like means of transport so people can get from A to B. We're going to need to build like pipes so water can get to where people live or to the businesses that they work at. We need to build infrastructure so people can get power. And I think like that was why I got into construction, because it's something tangible. And during my career in construction, I've moved from working on hotels and apartment buildings to like train stations and schools, and I'm working on some like freeways, like bridges and roads now, and a port as well. So these are all things that are like kind of critical for society. And so that's the one thing, is like I really enjoy kind of feeling like I'm contributing to the greater good, or I'm contributing to the community. I suppose that's how I see myself in that way. And then the other thing was that, you know, I think everyone now is aware that there's this like climate change, and we need to, so for construction it's two things. One is like we need to build things that are more resilient to changing weather patterns and changing temperatures and bigger storms or floods or fires, or all the stuff that we build now needs to be resilient so it can withstand that. So we're not constantly rebuilding, because that would be quite wasteful and also very expensive. And then the other thing is, well, like the materials that we use to build all of these things. Like in the supply chain, a lot of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases are produced, but there's no real other alternatives at the moment for concrete or for steel or for asphalt, so there's, on the one hand, I feel like I'm contributing to society in that I'm helping to design and build things that add value to the community. And then on the other hand, it's a massive problem, a really difficult, challenging problem to tackle, which is enjoyable. And then I guess the result, if you can figure out how to solve this problem of high embodied energy in the materials that we use to build things, then you're also contributing back to the community because you're making less of an impact on the environment. That was a very convoluted way of getting to it. But yeah, I think going back to uni and eyes open to how much the population is increasing, and I guess how much construction is needed to support the population. This is globally. And then also, the construction industry is also quite a bad polluter. And unlike other industries where they're able to decarbonize quite quickly if they change their electricity, if they change what kind of power they use in the grid or things like that, or if they change the fuel that they use in their shipping containers or whatever, those other industries that are big polluters are going to be able to decarbonize a lot quicker than our industry because, we need to build heaps more infrastructure, heaps more houses. We also need to retrofit a lot of houses, but all the materials we use are still quite bad for the environment, which I knew concrete and steel were bad, but I didn't realize kind of that they're bad, but also it's very difficult not to use them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd love to have that whole conversation as when we have a full dedicated hour to talk about how you ended up there and your whole story, because I think it's really cool. But I was wondering if I could kind of jump off that and talk about how I see my purpose with what I'm trying to do and why I'm even doing this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really going to try and not cry, but that might happen. Because I basically have been as you know, I get these low periods, and this most recent one has been triggered by a breakup that happened 5 days ago. But in the time, it's interesting, when we talked, and that was so helpful, the message you sent me kind of reminding me that, I went through this a year ago as well. And maybe I'm dealing with it better this time, which is, or not better, but just, I guess I have more resilience than back then, but it still feels really hard. And I think what I've kind of realized is that if I can talk about this stuff, and because I guess basically it's I don't know how I could have got through this stuff if it wasn't for other people sharing openly about their struggles in life and literally writing about depression and anxiety and writing about feeling like they can't go on, which is kind of, yeah, that's it. That was the point. I was, this morning, I sent my brother a message saying, I'm back in that place where I feel so sad every morning. Oh God, I have the most ugly crying voice. Anyway, where I feel so sad every morning when I wake up. Can't bear to face another day. Type thing. And that I just, needed to tell someone who understands. And then he called me, and that was really good, I guess, as well. After a breakup, it's like about switching from going to that person who you always go to then going to other people. So I'm really, really proud of myself for sending that message. But
yeah, definitely.
I realized, because this just has been what I've been dealing with for 3 years, and obviously there's been ups and downs, but I just feel like it's very hard to explain this idea of the podcast and when people, and of what I'm writing, and when people are, like looking at Stephen Bartlett, and yeah, that's all great, that's like very much a business, but it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it, and maybe I should have a go at like writing a script and doing an episode of myself, like introducing the podcast and trying to put it into better words. But it's just helpful to like record this and then in a month or whatever put it out there, and it's like, if it's just one person listens to this and I guess gets the same help I've got from like listening to so many other people, it's I feel like that's how I can like have a positive impact on this world, just by sharing this stuff. Because I think the biggest thing when you experience this, you feel, it's like you lose full perspective, like you feel like you're the only person in the world who's struggling, and that it's like the brain is like playing tricks and it's telling you all sorts of things that aren't really true, but especially just that, yeah, you're like a failure and you're never gonna do anything, and you're stuck and you're trapped, and everyone else has moved on. Like that was the big thing today. It's like you're still here, and it's like, like thinking back to a year ago when I was feeling like this, and you were like such a great support, and I was like doing this painting and like putting all the emotion of the breakup into that. But it's like, then when I have another setback, it's like, why the fuck am I still here? And it's like, to look at you, you're like, I know it's not true, but it feels like, it's like, oh my God, everyone else is just moving on and like going on to better career opportunities and getting married and having babies and whatever. Like it's just like, it just feels like, it's just this trick that it's telling me like I'm being left behind. And therefore I'm isolated and alone. And so, yeah, I guess that's the point. But if I can speak about this and someone listens and they feel like this, it's like, you're not, like, to give an example, I feel this is, my dad was telling me this woman he knows is going to Cambridge to study like I think it's like an environmental conservation degree, as she's like in her 50s or 60s, and she's taking a break from her job and going over to do that. And he asked if I could like talk to her about practical stuff of like where to live and opening a
Yeah,
bank account
yeah,
or whatever. And
yeah.
he said she won't be living on campus because she has a 25-year-old mentally unwell, like child who's mentally unwell, and so is dependent on her. And I genuinely felt like it's like that's me, which makes no sense. But I think that's why these breakups are so painful,
Yeah.
because like, oh god, this is I hate the sound of my voice when it goes like this. Yeah, because I feel like it's like I can't do it on my own, but it's like I have to. So I guess that I it's funny I'm switching between like completely falling apart and then sounding very
And
confident.
laughing, yeah.
but I think it's like today, like with the health thing, it's like, yeah, I need to be responsible for my health. And so I'm about to run out of this skin medication I take. And it's like, I have to do it. I have to get the script. And it's like, oh my God, I haven't registered for the GP, like to this, like I'm still registered to Cambridge. And like that's been like, a year since I've lived there and I still haven't done it. But it's like, I have to do it. And then stuff with, like me and you are going to India together in
Yeah,
10
yeah.
days. And it's like, your dad has very kindly like given me some heads up on like what that, well, he was like, you should look into getting a rabies vaccine. And it took me 6 weeks to think about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So should I think about that? He was like, you need multiple doses and like it takes a bit longer than like we're about to go in 10 days. But
I wish he told me that. He didn't tell me that.
oh really? Well, I don't
No.
think we need it. But yeah, I guess it's like that's the balance. It's like knowing there are so many like lovely, kind people out there who, your dad, I look forward to meeting him, but like we haven't met yet, but he's still like, he's a doctor as well. Like, so just so I'm not getting random medical advice from strangers, but but it's like, he's like kind. I guess it's that balance, but it's like, I am responsible for myself and I can do it. And even though it's hard, I can be a functioning human in society and I can feed myself and I can, because that was the other thing on the form this morning, filling out registering for the GP. It was like, do you have a carer? And I was like, genuinely, again, had this thought of like, I feel like I need that. But then it was like, okay, no, you're so fortunate that you can, because some people can't, and that's okay. But it was like, okay, no, you can. It's like, I guess that's the point of depression. It like tells your brain that you can't do anything, and it kind of like wipes your memory. Well, for me, it like wipes my memory of anything I've ever achieved and done like on my own, and also that it wipes my memory that people love me and care about me and have like, so that's like a big part of the work that I'm committing to is like writing every morning reminders of like, gratitude. People talk about gratitude every day, but it's like, what is that? It's like literally writing down like, okay, I am safe, like I have a bed to sleep on, like just start. It's like, okay, I am, I can see and I can walk and I have my physical health. And it sounds so stupid, but it's like, that's the stuff I have to remind myself. It's like reminding myself I have got a degree, because often it feels like I'm so worthless that I have no prospects. Like that's kind of the feeling. And it's like reminding myself of that, and then reminding myself of like, yeah, there are these people love you, and like you're so lucky you have like your friend Neil to record a podcast with out of just like the kind because because he's your friend, and that's really nice. Like, yeah. So it's like
I
very
also
basic.
want to be on some of the first episodes and on your first podcast series as well for when it all blows up.
When's that gonna be?
It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like that's kind of what I wanted to give myself. It's like commitment here that it's like, okay, this is what I'm struggling with. That's fine. I'm taking accountability. That's my health in those three priorities. It's like focus on your health. Like, how are you? And actually, I found this really great thing that which is why podcast advertising on podcasts is helpful, because it was an ad that came up in a podcast that was like very targeted at what I need, and it's like this app that helps you. It's like we all know, like everyone knows how you feel better when, or anyone who's struggled with this stuff for more than a period of time knows it's like diet, sleep, exercise, talking to people who you love, having like the right relationships in your life, doing meditation, breath work. All of this is like really, really key for mental health. But the point is, when you're feeling super low, it's very difficult to remember that stuff because you're just stuck. Like, have you ever experienced that kind of thing?
Of feeling stuck.
Feeling just like so low that it's like you can't even meet your own basic needs of like, oh, I could get up and go for a walk and maybe I'll feel a bit better.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it would be, I don't know, I don't think I've met anyone who said they haven't felt like that before. But I guess I'm lucky in that it hasn't lasted for a long period of time. And then I guess, you build momentum when you get out of a slump. You start going for a walk, or you start like getting out of bed. You wake up early and you're like, okay, I'm going to make myself go for a walk and get a coffee. And you go, oh, this actually feels pretty good. And it builds up and up and up. But yeah, definitely. Definitely. Or it's like, or if you, I don't know, like if you've had a really stressful day at work and then you think that someone said something and it's, I don't know, you think, I don't know, your mind plays tricks on you sometimes when you're under stress, or if you've gone through something that's made you feel really shitty.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's the idea of this app, that it's like reminds you, it's like, yeah, you know how to do all these things, but it actually gives you the science that explains how your brain works. Like, and also, and the whole thing is like, there's nothing in here that's new. We are just like pulling together all the science of all these people and presenting it in a way, but we're taking you on this journey to, and yeah, it uses AI and whatever, whether that's marketing or real, but it's like, it's kind of a customized thing to you to help gently be like, okay, like, that writing like 3 pages of like everything you're grateful for and everything that's good in your life makes you feel good. But like, it's like prompting you to actually do it, and like prompting you of like, you feel so awful and you're in so much pain, but like, could you possibly get up and go to the park? Like, is that, and then it's like the idea that, which is really cool, that it's like we are using all these things that have helped. It's like there are so many people who have felt the way you feel, and these are things that have made them feel better. And it's like, are you going to commit to feeling better, because that's the other thing, when you feel so low, it can be like, I don't want to feel better, or not. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Not intentionally, but it's like everything sucks. Like it can be, yeah, the victim narrative of like, everything sucks. Why does bad stuff happen to me all the time? Like, why do I keep having these setbacks? Like, this is unfair. But it's like, and then that can keep you stuck. So I guess this app is a commitment that it's like, do you want to stop feeling like this and change your life? And it's like, I mean, not as dramatic as like change your life in a self-helpy way, but like a genuine, like, are you ready to like move forward?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's super helpful for me to say this stuff here, because then when I, if that voice does creep in as well, people can remind me as well, like, Delia, remember you said on the podcast how much you want to move forward and that you want to talk about this stuff, and that's your way of like helping people and you're figuring it out and whatever. And then it's like, no, we are doing this, to like whatever voice it is. It's like, okay, I know you're feeling so sad, but it's okay. Like, the path is laid out. I don't know, because it's just like, this just makes me feel so much better to be like, to, I guess, give, that's like the most cringe saying ever, but like giving purpose to the pain. It's like, okay, if I'm going through this, at least if I can help other people, then maybe it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I think it's a yeah. I think it's hopefully it's like a good motivator to do the next one, even if you are having a shitty day, because you
Yeah.
can listen back on this one, or when someone reaches out and says, "Oh, hey, I listened to that time that you poured your heart out and told your story and told the reason why you're doing these, and it really resonated with me, and it really helped me that day, and I did go out on a walk or something like that." Like, I think it's I think if it's making you feel better and it's going to make someone else feel better, then it's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really cool now with the newsletter, that it's like, now that's just something I do and that people like expect is coming to them. And like, it's just like, there's no question about like, oh, like, are you gonna keep doing that weird newsletter thing you do? Like, people are just like, cool, like, can't wait for the next newsletter or whatever. And every time I'm just like so shocked that someone actually like has read it. But I think that's it. And then the fact that I can be so honest there, like, for example, I did on the last one just start it saying like, I read this book, and then because it's like it's like learning stuff I'm learning from books and other ideas. But it's like, I just started by saying, I just broke up. I read this book, and then my boyfriend broke up with me. And then I also just had this super vulnerable kind of thing at the end about like something that he had told me, which, it's helpful to remind myself again now, which is like, when I'm in this low self-worth place, I can't, like, because I so deeply want to help other people and have a positive impact, he kind of like gently reminded me at some point, like in our relationship back in April, that I can do that much more effectively when I'm feeling good. And so that's kind of like a big motivator to to look after my health and to make sure I am feeling good, because then I can help. Whereas when I'm in the low worth thing, it's very difficult for me. It's like, I actually then become a burden, and I don't want to be like, of course it's fine to be sad, and like, that's what friends are for, and things always go wrong in life, right? It's like, people die. That's what happens in life, very sadly. But so you always need, like, friends are always going to be there for that stuff. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. And obviously, yeah, I asked I talked to him before putting that stuff in. This is like a very safe, it's not like I'm like writing in the newsletter, like calling for help or something. Like everything in there is very like, I'm in control of everything, but I'm just being vulnerable. And it seems to really resonate with people, particularly men, which I think maybe it's because, I don't know, maybe because this emotional stuff now, like hearing me have these emotions is like people can find that quite difficult, but maybe when it's written, people can absorb it
Yeah. Yeah.
more easily. And then it's like, maybe they're part of this conversation that they wouldn't usually be a part of, if you know what I mean, because like when you're with the boys, like watching cricket or whatever, it's not like you're opening your heart about feeling like a failure for the relationship that broke down or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that's really good. And then it's just like, cool, I do this podcast. It's a success, it's not a success, it's just like something I do and publish every week, and then it's just builds from there, you know. And there's no there's no question about, I think, that's what I struggle with. People are so obsessed with wealth and like how is this moving you forward, and what's the path, and how much money, and this compared to finance, and why would you make that life decision, and X, Y, and Z. But I think it's like, it's like, of course I need to pay the rent, but there's different ways to figure that out, right? And it's like, actually, it's not really anyone's business, like how I manage my finances. But as long as it's like, that's the accountability bit, I can be responsible for my health and for my finances, which is just like being an adult, which is, I guess, why this podcast is called Growing Up.
Yeah.
And then I just see where it goes. But I think it is, I mean, I think that's why I love your framing, that it's like, that's you're contributing to society because we need bridges and roads and ports. This is like essential infrastructure, and you're helping build those things. And then there's a greater purpose because you are very passionate about, you know, the future and protecting against environmental disaster and etc. So it's such a deeper, it's not like, oh, but how much money are you gonna make from that? Like, should you be doing this other thing? Like, what's your title? Like, it's like, that can look like so many different things. Like, you can do that in a job, you can do that with your own company, you can do that like in a, you know, academics can contribute to that. Like, there's so many ways to do that. So I guess, that's helpful for me to think of this like that it's like, this is what I'm trying to do. And I'm just figuring it all out. And it will, it's like something that you build over years. It's not like it's going to be work all figured out within 6 months.
No. Exact, but yeah, you're on the right track.
Thanks.
And we'll I'm sure we'll have some interesting stuff to take out of India too.
Yeah. Well, because we'll be trekking in the Himalayas, and it's like, I love that idea that you're walking for that, like, it's like, that is the path, you're on a path, and it's like, you just have to put one foot in front of the other. like on, and then you get to the point we're going, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
that's how it works, but it's like a metaphor. And I'm so excited because I love talking to people like our parents' age about, because, you know, they've experienced so much shit in their lives,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
everyone does in their life. It's just what life is.
yeah,
And for them to just be like, look at us, you know, like we're so young, even if we don't feel like we are, and that we've got everything ahead of us and that it's all going to be okay. Yeah.
yeah. I think, yeah, there'll definitely be some interesting conversations around the campfire for sure.
Will there be a
If there is a
campfire?
campfire, I don't know.
It is going to be, yeah, because we're going to be very high altitude. So it
Yeah,
is.
we're in one of the world's highest deserts.
Wow. Cool.
And
It's
highest is in Chile. Oh wait,
the
no, the
highest
highest is
desert.
in Pakistan. Wow, that's not where we're
Well,
going
that's
though.
not far from where we'll be.
True, that
It's
is
funny,
true.
on Google Maps it doesn't show the borders, because I'm trying to work out the border, because we're quite in the north of India, and I'm like, oh, where's the border with China? Where's the border with Pakistan? It's like, nope, that's not something that Google Maps is going to talk about.
No, no, definitely not. Have you read Eat the Buddha?
No, I would love to. Maybe I should bring that. Do you think I should bring a? Is the trip going to be like book reading happening, or not really? Because
I'm gonna take a book for sure.
but then the mule has to carry it.
I don't know what book to take, but read Eat the Buddha, especially before we go to that part of the world
Okay.
or while we're there.
Yeah, maybe I'll bring it while we're there. Because I
Because
do
I
love
think,
having a book that's on theme with what you're doing,
yeah,
you know?
I think it'll be very on theme because if I remember correctly, a lot of people from Tibet live in the part of India that we're going to now as exiled there.
Mm. Yeah, I'm excited to learn about it. Well, maybe we'll be doing a podcast about talking about everything we're learning. Maybe
Up
we'll
there,
meet
yeah.
someone who'll come on the podcast.
There you go. Ladakh is called Little Tibet due to its cultural and geographical affinities with Tibet, of which it was a province for several centuries.
There you
Interesting.
go.
Interesting.
All right, I have got to run. I'm actually doing another podcast.
Oh, cool.
So I've got to jump on a bike and get up to Highgate, a very beautiful part of London.
Yeah, Highgate's really nice. Are you riding a bike there?
Well, I'm going to ride a bike to the Northern Line at Embankment and then get on the Northern Line.
A Boris bike?
No, I'm really into Lime bikes.
Yeah, they're cool.
I still need to buy a bike since mine got stolen a long time ago and I haven't replaced it, and I'm spending a lot of money on Lime. It's very expensive. Like it's because people think the tube's expensive. It's like it's more expensive than the tube. It will be like £7 for like a half an hour thing.
Do they have the scooters there? I can't remember.
Yeah, they do. They just got them. Yeah, that's when I first met you. You were riding a scooter around Cambridge, thinking it's like so funny. Smoking a cigar outside King's.
The last time I rode one of those bikes was after the grand final.
Oh my god, is that when you smashed your face?
Yeah.
No, that was... Oh yeah, that was a Santander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, ouch. That was really bad.
Oh, far out. Yeah, no, that was I don't think I'll ever get on one of those bikes again.
Would you go on any bike?
I've been riding those scooters around. There's heaps of them in Melbourne.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, so I was riding those around for a little bit, just for the novelty factor.
Mm.
And then this is, oh, you'll love this. Classic Melbourne. There have been like police patrols out on the street corners, making sure people wear helmets on their electric scooters.
Wow, so you have to BYO helmet to the
No,
scooter.
they have them on the scooter, but
Really? Like attached to the scooter?
like attached to the scooter. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that's very Melbourne.
that is
That's very
classic.
Australia, nanny state.
Very Australia. Very
Yeah,
Australia.
I do actually. I am going to buy a bike and buy a helmet and everything again.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah, I think my bike got stolen and then I just gave someone the helmet. Or I don't even know what happened because the helmet didn't get stolen. But now it's like, okay, come on, this is me rebuilding my life. Buy your bike back, wear a helmet because I
Yeah.
haven't been wearing a helmet, and it's I do feel like it's much safer to be wearing a helmet. But helmet for a scooter, I don't know if that's necessary.
Health is the number one thing, Delia. Health is number
True,
one
health is
priority.
number one, mission number two, boyfriend number three. Okay, I will run and
Ride safe.
thank you. And then I'll be in touch soon regarding, whether you can please pack a head torch for me or if I need to buy one.
No,
Along with all the other
I'll bring one.
groovy hiking gear I need to buy. All right.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll speak to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for having me on. Bye.
Thanks for being here.